Quick introduction to who's speaking today. So, Melissa Robertson and Lou Tyler are with the New Mexico Office of Superintendent of Insurance. Melissa works with OSI as the Property and Casualty Bureau Chief, and Lou is the Consumer Assistance and Civil Investigation Bureau Chief.
I am Melissa Robertson, the Property and Casualty Bureau Chief. As Megan had said, Lou and myself are really kind of leading the way with the IBHS introduction into New Mexico. So most states, it takes roughly 5 to 7 years to bring in IBHS and their different programs. And Lou and I were able to do it in a year and a half. And so within the insurance industry and the regulatory industry, they are all watching at what we've done here. And we came across with a very holistic approach, including New Mexico Forestry, the state fire marshals, construction industries, as well as the insurance, a representative from the insurance industry, because wildfire has become so prevalent in New Mexico, and it does create that snowball effect of not being able to buy a home because you can't get a mortgage, because you can't get an you can't get insurance, and so on and so forth. So everybody always asks what's changing within the insurance market. And, we get calls daily. My rates are going up. I'm being dropped. My neighbor's not being dropped. What's going on? So within the insurance market right now, inflation has played a major factor since COVID. We do have a statute that requires insurance companies operating within New Mexico to cover for replacement cost. And so with inflation going up, building costs going up, the companies have to adjust your rates to account for inflation so your home is insured for replacement costs. So that was actually the driving factor behind rates since COVID. The good news is in the last year, we have seen rates start to stabilize, even with the catastrophic wildfires that New Mexico has faced. Again, tying right into that is catastrophic loss. Again, New Mexico has been hit hard. And so while we don't have companies leaving, they are being very selective of what they write. They're spreading the risk. And so what's happening is if they have a large exposure in one area, they are then going to look at the individual homes to see, has those homes been properly mitigated? If they have, chances are they're going to stay on the policy. If they haven't, they are going to drop that policy. However, a company that does not have exposure in the area is going to come in and pick up the policy that was dropped. So this all ties together. I mean, inflation for cost of rebuild, catastrophic loss, spreading the risk, and lack of mitigation. I know this is really hard to see. However, it is a map of fire within New Mexico and the areas that have burned previously. So quite a bit of New Mexico has burned, but not to the extent that we're not in a wildfire risk. The risk is still growing. Things are regrowing. As anybody can tell who's been outside, it is very warm. It is very windy. We do not have the snowpack that we would normally have this time of year. We have started working with IBHS a year and a half ago. What they are is they're a nonprofit that is actually funded by the insurance industry to do the science behind how to properly mitigate your home to reduce your risk. This was extremely interesting to the insurance companies because, again, they're the ones getting hit with the financial losses when wildfires roll through an area. So they have two programs within IBHS when it does come to fire, the Wildfire Prepared Home Base and the Wildfire Prepared Home Plus. So on the base, I mean, this is basic retrofitting that you can do to your home currently. So first and foremost would be a Class A roof because of its resistance to heat. The second would be the 0 to 5 foot zone. A lot of people refer to it as the zero zone. And this is 5 feet out from the closest area of your structure with nothing flammable. We are talking mulch, greenery, junipers, aspen trees, you name it. We are looking for, rock, flagstone, concrete, anything that would create that 0 to 5 zone around your house. Um, and this is for ember resistance, or ember resistant construction. So you'd also need a 6-inch vertical from the ground up to your home. That's where we see embers accumulate. If they're right in that little nook of your house, it is, prime. That's where you get your leaves, your pine needles, everything like that. Um, maintaining your decks, keeping underneath your decks clear of pine needles, leaves, anything that can accumulate, and enclosing your decks, as well as utilizing a wire mesh over any venting that's 1/8 inch or less. It still allows for proper ventilation, but it does not allow the embers to get in, whether it's an attic or under the home. If you are retrofitting an existing home, the base is the most cost effective. If you are building new construction, then the plus is actually very minimal when it comes to new construction. Lou worked very hard with IBHS, and I will say she pushed very hard with IBHS. And she was able to get the flat roofs, the TPO roofs, approved with the proper documentation as being Class A. So we would need to see what the underlayment and the actual um, construction layers are. So as I said, we brought in Wildfire Prepared. The program is up and running. If you go to their website, wildfireprepared.org, it's going to walk you through all the steps, either in the base or the plus. You would have to prep your home yourself. You would submit photos. At that point, the IBHS can see that you have taken ownership and pride in trying to get this done. There'll be an application you fill out. It will then ping. There's 5 of us to do the inspections. It's Lou, myself, Morella, and then the 2 state fire marshals, Randy Varela and Anthony Leba. And we can go out and actually inspect the home to see if all boxes have been checked. Normally, the application fee would be $125, but because we are state employees and we cannot get paid outside of our normal job, IBHS has lowered the application cost to $25 right now. And now for you to get that $25, there are some steps within the application process that you would need to take. So it would be best to reach out to Lou and I before you submit your application so we can send you just a little bit of information as to where to add information that will trigger us and it will trigger that discount from IBHS. What we're doing right now with any New Mexico resident or homeowner can start the IBHS process on their own, but OSI did receive a $10 million allocation from the legislature to do mitigation for homes within the FAIR Plan, which is the market of last resort. We have started our pilot program down in Wimsett, New Mexico, which is outside of Cloudcroft. We are fixing to move on 3 houses that do qualify. And outside of the FAIR Plan, we are actually going down for the very first IBHS certification inspection tomorrow. It is also in southern New Mexico. So we are very excited that, people are seeing the importance and moving towards these mitigation factors to help protect their home. And also when you protect a home and you get multiple homes in the area, you start moving towards a community resiliency. Just to touch a little bit on the New Mexico Fair Plan, because again, we are getting calls that people are getting dropped, and it is very time consuming to go out and find another company that will pick up your home. They're out there, but it is time consuming. But as a backup, we do have the New Mexico Fair Plan. So with the Fair Plan, it is a plan of last resort. The coverage is very minimal. You don't want to be there unless you absolutely have to. It is the only plan that will be able to insure you for actual cash value. Again, everything else is replacement cost. We were able to work with the board for the FAIR Plan. We did try legislation. We didn't make it out of the House. But with our superintendent working with the board on the FAIR Plan, we were able to increase coverage this last year up to $750,000 for a residential home and up to $2 million for a commercial building. The biggest factor right now with that is, again, we're trying to move everybody out of the FAIR Plan back into the open market. That's what keeps the open market competitive. So again, unless you have to be there, you don't want to be. And if you need to reach out to Lou and I, Lou is the head of consumer assistance. And if you have questions on the IBHS application or what the mitigation standards are or anything, you can give us a call at 505-827-4549. And at that, Megan, I will turn it over for questions or anything. And I have Lou in here with me finally. So you have both of us.
Okay, great. Again, apologies everyone for all of the technical difficulties we're having today. I've been collecting the questions that were in the chat, so let's just start with the ones that have been put in there so far. And Melissa, can you say that number again so I can type it into the chat? It was
It's
505-827.
505-827-4549.
4549. Okay. That is now in the chat. So one of the first questions was, are you familiar with Firewise programs? And so do you want to just go into a little more detail of how the Wildfire Prepared Home program differs from Firewise?
Sure. So yes, we're familiar, and Firewise did a great job of bringing community together and mitigating at a community level. Where IBHS differs is we are actually looking at mitigation on the structure as well as the land, adjacent to the structure. So there are requirements for the structure that have to be met to get the IBHS certification. And again, IBHS is funded by the insurance industry. So it is the only program that is recognized by the insurance industry with an actual certificate of completion.
And then the next question is, can the state coverage program be used for a residence that has a mortgage on it?
Yes. So the FAIR plans are recognized by mortgage companies, even though they are actual cash value. I will reiterate, they are a bridge to get back into the open market. Mortgage companies do accept them, but they are not highly recommended due to the fact it's only actual cash value.
And then there's just a comment about there only being 5 inspectors for the entire state. So I think just, is there looking to be more inspectors in the state? Kind of what's the outlook for the number
Yes.
of inspectors? Okay.
Yes, right now, this is a pilot program. It just started with with us being able to receive the allocation and bringing in IBHS. So to give you an idea, IBHS has now been in the state, I think, for 3 or 4 months. We have our first full inspection tomorrow. We're going to have homes down in Wimsett in the next month. We do know other homeowners are working towards the IBHS certification. Right now, with 5 of us, we do have enough to cover. However, we are working on a program that will incorporate other entities that have kind of been with us since the get-go on this to get additional personnel trained and certified.
And then another question was, are there any trees that are approved to be near the house? Just thinking about the ways that trees serve benefits, including lower electricity bills.
So with the IBHS certification, there is absolutely 0 trees that are allowed to be within that 5-foot zone. There's a very good video. Good Morning America actually did it in hand with IBHS, and they did take different types of greenery and show the effects. I also know in New Mexico, a lot of people, there's 2 things we see a lot is mulch. Lou and I were able to attend a live burn. They did mulch around one of the structures. the mulch actually burned for 3 hours after the structure was already destroyed. And the other thing that we see around houses, definitely here in Santa Fe, and even as I look out my window, is the coyote fences. People don't realize that those fences go right up to their dwelling, and that's essentially putting a matchstick against their dwelling. They need that 0 to 5 feet, whether it's a metal gate or an opening, just to allow that heat to escape and not let that fire have a driving path to your house.
And this is Lou. If you have a tree up against your house, and it may be a small tree that you don't think is highly flammable or is going to cause that much destruction, all you need is a little bit of fire from that tree to send an ember into your gutter that has pine needles in it or anything like that. And once that happens, you're exposing your home to full engulf flames.
So kind of talking more about that 5 foot zone, and for folks in the chat, I'm going to bounce around a little since there are a lot of questions. Are decks and porches considered part of the structure, and where does that clear 5 foot border start? And
So,
then, yeah, I'll ask
yeah,
that first part of the question first.
decks and porches are definitely considered part of the structure, and that 5 foot is from the furthest part of the structure out. Now we have to remember, we also need decks and porches enclosed, and that prevents accumulation of pine needles, leaves, anything that can blow up under there because they are kind of a catch-all.
And then the second part of that question was for the non-flammable 6 inch vertical, would that include the junction between the deck and the porch and the wall, or would the 6 inches be on the outside of the deck and the porch?
It would have to be on the outside of the deck and the porch. So if you have beams coming down, you have a raised deck, you have beams coming down, those beams have to also have that 6 inch vertical. My house is a primary example. So off my porch, I have the beams, I have the 6 inch vertical there. And then where my actual just structure is, I actually have a 6 inch block vertical there. So it doesn't matter if it's the porch or the house, any vertical has to have 6 inch.
Um, so there's a question in the chat saying, I don't understand the 6 inch vertical. Can you explain that a little bit more?
Sure.
It's the bottom 6 inches of your, say you have your wall, you have 6 inches at the bottom that needs to be non-combustible, where nothing that is blown up against it from the wind can ignite your home on fire.
So again, I'll expose myself. I have a wood frame, wood side home, but under where that wood side meets, I have concrete block. Mine's actually 10 inches, but I have concrete block 10 inches and then it goes to the ground. And then needless to say, I have rock and flagstone around my house where, nothing can accumulate. If I walked over and tried to start a fire, there is nothing there that's flammable in that corner. Think about where the leaves and pine needles and everything accumulate on your house.
So here's the actual wildfire prepared home checklist, and this is what they're talking about, the 6 inch. So if this was wood siding, what Melissa and Lou are saying is this first 6 inches needs to be something non-combustible.
Perfect. Thank you, Megan.
Yeah. Okay. Trying to do a lot of things at one time. Can you guys go more into the benefits of what comes from an IBHS certification? Is it residence-based, or is it also dependent on the conditions of surrounding properties?
It's resident based, and if you get the IBH certification, that gives you a greater chance to maintain your insurance and not get canceled or non-renewed, or for high wildfire area, they'll take in your mitigation and your certificate into consideration. The more homes we do, the better chances are for your community to be insurable. And then there's also possibilities of discount. And again, if it's on a community level, it is a greater chance for these things to happen.
I'm trying to kind of group questions that make the most sense. Let's talk a little bit more about the program itself. Do you have any concerns that the insurance industry is backing IBHS? Why not use the WUI code, building code?
So there is no concern that the insurance industry is backing IBHS. Reason being, insurance industry is taking the financial hit from these losses. They're trying to help protect people's homes, so they quit taking those financial hits, which are driving up rates and everything else. Again, the insurance industry is dumping tons of money into IBHS to do the science on how to properly mitigate homes from loss. The WUI code, it has been looked at, it's been reviewed. We have to remember the IBHS certification process is voluntary. And so if the state or community would try to implement the WUI code, that's going to take years, where IBHS is available right now. It's voluntary and it's at the want of the homeowner. They're not having something forced on them should they decide they don't want it.
And then is OSI and IBHS working with foresters and fire managers on what is most effective for fire risk reduction? This goes to Peggy's question about the benefits of trees, especially as the climate warms.
Yes, we are working. Like I said, when we started, it was very much a holistic thing. It was New Mexico Forestry, it was state fire marshals, it was us, regulation, and licensing, as well as a representative from the insurance industry. I understand, and let's just be very direct. I understand people love their trees. I understand people love their trees against their house. But is that one tree worth you potentially losing your house? Because I can guarantee if your home burns, that tree's gone too.
There's a few questions regarding roofs. So first question, just can you go more into what a Class A roof is? So are metal roofs considered Class A? And then where can we find more info about the type of roof underlayment that allows a TPO roof to be considered Class A?
IBHS does have the breakdown of the Class A roofs. However, most roofs in New Mexico are Class A. They go from the decking to the underlayment, and then the metal or the shingle or the clay tile, all those are Class A.
Shake is not.
Uh, I'm trying to think of a non-Class A would be a wood shake roof. But everything else, for the most part, is Class A. The breakdown on the TPO is again that underlayment, and then make sure the membrane at the top has a fire rate on it.
Okay, we have a few specific questions about people, individuals, properties. So a deck that is made of Trex and is screened underneath, does that still require the 0 to 5 foot horizontal mitigation for the basic?
Everything requires the 5 foot.
Yeah, so that's just being an outsider looking in. That's one of the biggest differences between Firewise and IBHS certification is the IBHS certification does require that 0 to 5 completely non-combustible zone.
Correct.
Um, Again, I think it's going to be the same answer, but let's just hit the nail on the head. I have rainwater tanks with wood supports made of 2x4s. They have fire retardant covering on the wood. Any comments?
Those are not allowed within the 5 feet zero uh, zone. So you would have to extend them out somehow, which I've seen some pretty creative extensions for that.
And then is a foam roof considered Class A?
A foam roof is considered Class A as long as it has at least inch or 2 inches, 2 to 3 inches of the gravel on top, so that the birds cannot get through to the foam.
And then there's some questions about like the loss of insurance. So if people are threatened to lose their insurance, is there a state program for them to get covered? So do you guys mind going a little more into the FAIR plan?
I'll let Melissa do the FAIR plan.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, if they're threatening to get canceled, number one, I would first talk to your agent and have your agent talk within their company. They may allow time to mitigate the home to keep the policy. If that has happened and they're still absolutely saying no, there is the New Mexico Fair Plan. It is the plan of last resort. It is recognized by mortgage companies. It is only actual cash value. So your home is not going to be built to replacement cost should there be a loss. Again, it is there to bridge the gap. We highly recommend if you are being notified you're going to be canceled. Again, talk to your current agent. People name brand shop. I mean, it's normal. So, if you go to the grocery store and you're going to buy chocolate chip cookies, are you going to buy Chips Ahoy Nabisco, or are you going to buy whatever the grocery store is, Kroger or whatever. So people name brand shop. They do that with insurance as well. But we also have what we call independent agents, and independent agents are licensed to write with more companies than I can count. And so even though it might not be a name brand company, they are still writing here in the state and they will still insure the home. So again, it can be tedious to look for another company, but they are available. Now, for the people that we get calls from all the time that says, my rates are going up and I'm shopping, be cautious because you may go to another company and then they're going to inspect your property. And at that point, your property is not insurable to them. So really have that open communication with your agents. Know what your policy says, know what their underwriting guidelines are. And that's going to minimize some of the headaches that come up during this time.
There's a question and some resources are being put in the chat about the research that has been done by IBHS as evidence for their standards. Is there any specific papers or videos that you think would be helpful for people to know about if they wanted to look more into this?
Definitely. I would definitely first thing go to the wildfire-prepared.org. They have tons of video, tons of information. Again, Good Morning America, it's on YouTube. They did a big tie-in with IBHS. They actually did a live burn on TV. Two structures identical. One is built to common construction, one is built to IBHS standards. They use flamethrowers essentially that will hit the buildings in the same spot. And you can see how quickly the general construction home burns, and they're going to walk you through why. They are also going to show you the flammability of New Mexico plants, which now we refer to as green gas cans. It's mind-boggling how quickly those go up and how hot they get. So I would definitely look at those two. You can just Google also on YouTube, IBHS, and I mean, there are so many videos, documents, documentaries. There's actually one on the Palisades fire. It is very heart-wrenching, but at the end, they do show homes that did survive that were certified. The house out in Lahaina that survived, it was not intentionally to IBHS standards, but they did these standards without knowing due to water runoff and termites. And in the middle of a complete loss, that home stood. So the proof is there, the science is there, there's numerous videos, papers, everything on what they're doing and why it's being accepted.
Okay, I think we're slowing down in questions. One question just came in. If I understand correctly, wildfire prepared homes will reduce the risk of a homeowner losing their insurance. Does it address the affordability of insurance being offered?
It not right now. Again, if you have that certificate, depending on what the company has agreed to, you may have a discount. But the number one driver of rates up until this point has been inflation. I mean, if you go to Lowe's Hardware and you look at a cost of plywood today versus 2019, it's more than doubled. So really inflation is what's driving the rates. The second thing is by people mitigating, it keeps the open insurance market healthy and it keeps it competitive.
Questions have slowed in the chat, so I don't know if folks have other clarifying. There's a lot. So I think just to clarify for folks, we keep getting questions about any exceptions to that 0 to 5 foot zone.
So,
But the zero
No,
to five,
when
yeah.
it is, I mean, it is, Lou and I, when we come out, we are bringing a tape measure. And we will measure from the furthest part of your structure out 5 feet. If there is anything flammable in that 5 feet, the certification process will stop.
So if there are rain barrels on the deck, that 0 to 5 foot is considered to be in front of the deck. Are the rain barrels allowed to be on the deck?
yes, if it's 5 feet out. Oh, no.
No. And the main reason, look up the heat rating on one of those. They melt. Um, no hot tubs, no trash cans. They all melt. They don't have a heat rating on them. So yes, they're full of water, but the actual containment system is going to melt and it is flammable.
Porfirio actually put in the chat a report that came out of the Los Angeles County wildfires, and that report talks a lot about trash cans being a high source of ignition for a lot of homes during the LA fires. So
Yes.
similar with the rain barrels. So if you're interested in learning more about, again, the heat indexes of rain barrels and trash cans, check out that report in the chat.
Yeah, and hot tubs are the same.
Um, Are you experiencing any kickback from the construction industry? For this person in the chat locally, they are against wildfire resiliency efforts due to the extra expenses to build.
No, we have actually worked with multiple organizations within the construction industries, and they are backing this 100%. I mean, we are invited to every meeting now just to sit in and see how they are backing this and how they're moving towards this. Because again, if they can't build a home because the people can't get a mortgage because they can't get insurance, it goes full circle. It's going to affect the contractors, the realtors, the mortgage. It's that full circle.
Are these assessments all or none, or is it based on a scoring rating?
Nope, it's all or none.
And then, can you address what happens if a homeowner has you come out and inspect and there are still issues that need to be addressed? Does the homeowner have to pay the fee again for another inspection?
No, so if we go out and there's something that needs to be addressed, we're going to go over what needs to be addressed. We're going to leave. The homeowner will then address the issue, send the photos to IBHS so they can see that that has been corrected. And at that point, Lou or I or Morella or Randy or Anthony will go back out to the home. There is not an additional fee.
And then, does the New Mexico Wildfire Prepared Act or OSI have funds for communities to conduct educational campaigns about this new program?
So we have some funds through the allocation. Primarily, right now, we're doing town halls. So when we try to go out, we try to hit a mass quantity of people. Normally, it's Lou and I. Sometimes we are joined from New Mexico Forestry or the State Fire Marshal. As you know, Megan, we've done WOOFs now 3 years in a row. We did a town hall in Silver City that was side by side with the senator and the representative down there. We've been to fire stations because a lot of time fire personnel get calls of how to, somebody's calling, how do I mitigate my home? Well, we want them on board too. HOAs. So we're trying to get out in front of as many people. I do know there's going to be a lot of media coming out on this very soon. It's just trying to get through all the paperwork and everything with this, being a state entity.
I think to highlight for folks that this may be the first time they're hearing about the Wildfire Prepared Home in New Mexico, this is, again, a relatively new program in the state. It is voluntary and it is focused on maintaining insurability. So those are kind of the three main things that set this program apart from things like Firewise or WUI codes or other programs you may be more familiar with.
Right.
Okay, there's not too many questions in the chat. Oop. Um, there's a question, is it recommended for all homes, even those not in the WUI? And I think I might tack on what homes are not applicable for this standard, if you guys can talk more about that.
Sure. So a simple answer is absolutely yes, because we have seen in the last 2 months, two of the largest, and when I'm saying largest, we're talking a couple hundred to 1,000 acre wildfires, have been on the eastern side of the state in our grassland. And so New Mexico is very diverse. We're mountain, we're grassland. If you're in the middle of Albuquerque, you're in the middle of the Bosque. There is so much, I mean, people move here for the trees and the, aesthetic, land around them. But again, we have to remember grass fire moves just as fast, if not faster. Secondly, when it comes to the roofs and the Class A roofs, besides wildfire catastrophe in New Mexico, wind and hail claims is what drives our, on a normal year, we have more wind and hail claims than we do wildfire. So again, those Class A roofs over on, the southern and eastern side of the state. So absolutely, if you're in it, all of New Mexico is pretty much in some type of fire zone, or wind and hail zone. And the more people that do it, the more you get to the community level, which just creates resistancy. Embers, we know, can fly up to 2 miles in the correct conditions. So I can say from my office, looking to the mountains, to the homes that are to the south and west of us, there's still fire hazard.
And then are all homes eligible, or is there for a certification, or are there certain qualifications?
All all site-built homes. Mobile homes right now are not, but that is coming.
See, give it a few seconds if there's any other questions in the chat. So to reemphasize, this will be recorded and uploaded on to FACNM's YouTube page, which I will paste in the chat. And in the YouTube, in the comments section, I will post all the different resources that have been shared by Porfirio and others today. That way, there's a rolling kind of log of more information about this program. And if you have any questions or would like to give suggestions for future webinar ideas, I'm going to put my email in the chat. And then we do have a few more questions. So what about log homes or townhomes connected to several units?
So exact same standards. Again, I kind of threw myself out there. I'm in a wood frame, wood side ranch style home. It still qualifies as long as I have the 6-inch vertical, the Class A roof, the 0 to 5, the gutters. As long as I'm still hitting all of the requirements, it still qualifies.
And then for townhomes that are all one, like that are several different units, it would have to be the whole building, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Well,
Now we have to remember on townhomes, there's a certain number of dwellings for it to even be a residential dwelling before it kicks over to a commercial building. So, it's best on those if there's a specific question that somebody has to reach out to us.
I can paste both of your emails in the chat for folks if that's all right, Melissa and Lou.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
I guess just kind of wrapping up here, are there any things that you have been seeing in the inspections that you've been going out and doing? I know it's still early on, but is there common maybe parts of the certification standards that people have been missing or not complying with?
So two things. Number one, the 0 to 5 feet. People are being misinformed that they can have certain greenery in that 0 to 5 feet, and that's not allowed. There's no deviation from that. And then secondly, on decks, is they're not enclosed. Somebody says, well, my deck only has a 6-inch opening. Well, that's 6 inches for the wonderful wind in New Mexico to blow the pine needles and leaves under there, and the embers, which now you have a perfect storm.
And we do have a few professionals in the audience today. And so do you have any suggestions for professionals who are maybe going out and doing WUI assessments or home hazard assessments, some of the language that they can use? Yeah, just kind of speaking to the professional, maybe not the homeowner in this case.
Right. So the same thing, I mean, we met with roofers, we've met with realtors, we've met with fire personnel. The biggest thing is, and I don't know if you have this, Megan, and I can send it to you if you want to upload it, is the IBHS standard checklist.
Hmm.
And because a lot of people go out and they're like, yeah, you need to mitigate your home, but they don't understand, again, that one tree in the 0 to 5 feet will disqualify it. So, they may tell somebody it's okay, and Lou and I get out there and now it's more work for them. So it's really just have that checklist, understand that checklist, and guide them by that. I mean, the WUI has stuff that ties into the standards of IBHS. Firewise has stuff that ties into the standards of IBHS. But for the certification, it has to be to the IBHS standards. So they all tie together, it brings everything together. But to assure that you have certification, it has to be that checklist, every box checked to the T.
And then if folks are interested in reaching out about a town hall or community event coordination, is there one of you that would be better to reach out to?
That's Lou. She
Okay.
schedules everything.
So Lou is your contact if you're interested in having Melissa and Lou come out to your community and talk more and give a very similar presentation to your local community folks. Okay. I think we're Oh, if you have a large tree outside of the 5 foot zone, are there requirements for no branches overhanging the 5 foot zone or the roof?
Yes, when we go out, it is 5 feet up and down.
So, okay, well, I don't know, Lou, Melissa, I appreciate you dealing with the technical difficulties today. Do you guys have any last things, any last kind of main points, takeaways that you want to share?
No, just reach out for any question. If it's minimal to extensive, please reach out, get the answer so that we can just get all on the same page and make this effective and protect our citizens.
So, well, thank you all for coming and joining the webinar today. It should be uploaded to that YouTube page within a week, and all of the links that have been shared by folks will be also posted on that YouTube page. And if you have any questions, my email's in the chat. Feel free to email me and I can connect you with Melissa and Lou if you happen to lose their email as well. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Megan.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate you.